nasikia uchungu sana kuingia hiyo kidole ya refugee watoto yangu. Nasikia uchungu sana. Siwezi kulala mfikirio ya watoto.
I really feel pain because to get an ID is my just right. Even if I did a mistake, it's just my right to get an ID.
I have nothing. Anything that I want here in Garissa, I cannot do unless I use ID of someone else.
Degree niko nayo, diploma niko nayo, all certificates niko nayo na sipati kazi. Mimi bila ID niko restless. Every gate it's ID. Every gate you enter it's ID.
Right now if I told you that I'm waiting 2 years an ID, it is very difficult to understand. I cannot travel first and foremost to go to anywhere. Even my mother right now, even if she died right now, I cannot go.
If you cannot even change your surroundings, you cannot change maybe the area where you are, it's a problem, and you feel like that person is already in a prison.
We are talking of complete shutdown of life for close to 2-3 generations. Young men and women who cannot project their next step. You can imagine men and women who have all the time, have the knowledge, have the connections, but they can't put that into use.
Sometimes you say, why am I in Kenya if I don't have an ID card? If you cannot pass the bridge, you cannot do anything. You are in a jail which is open up.
Watoto yangu hawezi kuwa refugee. Hawezi kuwa refugee hata kama nanyongwa namna gani. Kama watoto nakimbia banda ya chakula baka yake ndio watoto watanyimbo. Hajui bahali nyingine, anajua Kenya tu.
If you could have seen what is inside my heart, Haki, ungenihurumia na ungeniambia pole. Ningependa kupata tu ID yangu. No other things that I want. It's only that ID.
Many people enjoy freedom of movement and association as enshrined in the Kenyan Constitution. They can walk around freely and travel to most parts of the Republic without restrictions, unless you are double registered and living like a foreigner in your own country. The massive drought of the 1990s sent many people from northeastern region into refugee camps in Dadaab in search of survival and a better life. Their details were biometrically captured and stored in the UNHCR refugee database. 25-year-old Abdi Rahman Mohammed only went to seek medical services.
After 2010, when I completed primary level, my father died. 2012, I have a problem with a medical problem, and I just went to BGH Garissa Hospital, and they told me come after 1 month to see the doctor that will operate you. After that, one of my brother talked to one of the doctors in refugee camp before, and he communicated and he told that come send the boy for tomorrow. And I went there for operation, a minor operation. After I completed, before I came back, I just take the ratio card from the refugee camp to confuse for some of my colleagues who are there, that you can go somewhere else or maybe you can get a free education, so just come here. And I just joined them, 2012, that's when I worked from 2.
He's not alone. A brief visit to the camp in early 2000s has turned into a nightmare for 26-year-old Sahal Abdi Rahman.
When I was just 8 years old, my uncle who was living there in the camps, especially Hakadera, has gave us that report of that there's a free learning of Islamic education, madrasa and the like. So my uncle called me there. I went there and then started learning the madrasa Quranic. People who are living in the camps, they use the ration card that provided by the UNHCR. So if maybe another member joined the family, he will be added to to the family members, therefore to increase the ration card. So that's why I went to the system of the UNHCR through the ration card of my uncle. So my fingerprint has been captured that time, but I think later when I somehow grew up.
For Halima Abdullahi, a mother of 7, her family is torn. Some of her children were born inside the refugee camps and their birth certificates indicate as such. And despite being vetted and issued with verification documents, it's been a long wait for recognition. The Kenyan Interior Ministry vetted thousands of people and promised to deregister all persons registered as refugees. It's been a long wait for people like Masood Farah, a taxi driver living with disability.
I went in Hagadera refugee camp in 2009, where I went with relatives. There was just a lot of drought, a lot of disasters. They took me with their ration card. That's how my fingers went to the UN database. The first time I have known that I'm in refugee database, it was 2018 when I was finishing my high school. I did my ID vetting, but suddenly I was told that you are in refugee database, but you cannot get an ID card. You know, I feel bad that my parents, both of them have an ID card, birth certificate, passport, and me, who have born here in Kenya, I don't have.
Mzee Daud Adan knows this too well. A former government employee, some of his own children were registered by UNHCR as refugees when they went into the camps in search of food.
Watoto wakiona chakula wanakimbia. Hata mimi bado kuingia kidole yangu bado ungisa huko. Ukafi siku hiyo. Iko ukafi mingi sana. UN ndio naleta hapo kwa bali sisi tunakaa. Analeta chakula. Watu wanaingia. Hata hawezi kuulizwa kibande. Nabewa chakula. Naandikwa jina yao. Ndio waliingia namna hiyo. Kama mimi najua watoto yangu wanaweza kufungika hapo, siwezi kubali. Lakini hata watoto hawajui na mimi sijui. Tumeona chakula tu, faida ya chakula. Mimi nilisikia mbaya kabisa. Mbaya kabisa kwa sababu wana haki ya kuchukua kitambulisho. Kama mimi. Watoto hawezi pata kazi. Hawezi hata shule kama nasoma hawezi pata. Iko wengine wanasoma lakini hawezi pata kazi, wanasoma namna gani?
We're talking of livelihood that cannot be achieved. We're talking of basic human rights that cannot be achieved by the victims and their dependents. We're talking of lack of movement. People cannot move. The right to be able to move from one place to the other is curtailed. So we are losing labor in the market. We are losing resources in the market. We are losing lives. We are talking of more than 40% of the victims who are parents. So we are talking of an average of 5 children in a household. So you can do 40% of the 5 households. You can imagine the numbers we are talking of. We are talking of people can't access health care. Why? Simply because of the movement. We were told even COVID, you can't access COVID vaccine because of you need identification.
The government of Kenya acknowledges the situation at hand, saying people around the region had no alternative but to survive.
Because of the meager resource for the local community felt it wise, few of them, to go and venture into refugee affairs so that they can get ration previously, that is. That is why they went into the UN data. A case in point is now the current scenario, where there's a lot of drought, there's no food, there's no stipend, there's nothing. But you see, next door here, people are given ration. They are comfortable. But because they have already entered into the UN data, and the finger is showing that they are refugee, the ID cannot help them.
Locals say the United Nations offered refugees better living conditions at their expense, and they feel left out by the government.
Refugees watu ambaye ukienda huko unaweza ona maduka ambaye vile wanakaa matajiri. Sisi tunaishi maskini. Enda Hagadera, enda Ifo, enda Dagahali. Upande wa biashara, upande wa mifugo, wao ndio tajiri sasa. Na sisi tumekuwa maskini. Utaona ngamia, mtu refugee ambaye ako na ng'ombe 100, 300. Ngamia 50, 20, 100. Na sisi hatuna. Sasa yetu yote imekwisha. Kwa vile sisi tunakwenda kuuza ng'ombe yetu na ngamia yetu. Lakini wao wanaleta tu, lakini wanatumia chakula bure. Si unaona? Chakula, wanakula chakula ya UN. Lakini sisi chakula yetu ni nini? Hatuna shamba. Ni hiyo ng'ombe na mbuzi na ngamia yetu. Sasa ukitoa leo moja, kesho tena utaendelea hivyo. Pande nyingine drought iko. So tumekuwa maskini. Sasa ukienda kwa refugee camps area hiyo, kuna 10,000 ya donkey tu peke yake, donkey peke yake, ambayo unaweza pata area hiyo. Inazurura. Wanatumia donkey carts kwenda kukata miti tena. Hiyo miti yote ni yetu. Ile chakula wanapata kutoka huko, wanauza, wananunua ng'ombe, ngamia. Sasa tuna rely on them. Sasa tunaenda kutafuta chakula huko, tunaenda kununua mbuzi, hata soko yetu ya mifugo sasa iko ndani ya refugee camps.
Because thousands of people's details appear on the UNHCR biometric refugee database, they cannot get Kenyan identity cards. And with it, their lives are ruined.
My life has been affected a lot. Without ID card, I have seen that without ID card here in Kenya, life is very hard. You cannot do anything. You cannot open a bank account. You cannot get a job. You cannot open for you even an M-Pesa. You cannot withdraw money from your line. Many things. Even right now, I don't have a driving license. I'm just using my disability here in town.
Yes, Abdulrazak, what will I do? Use the tube, then I'll say 3 brackets, 5. As a teacher, I cannot, first of all, be employed by TSC. I am still analog. I am still with the old curriculum because I cannot go in surface trainings to learn the CBC whatsoever. If you are employed by TSC, there's health coverages, or you can register some of the insurance companies like the, what do you call, NHIF and the like. I cannot join that one. Now I cannot be employed and then support myself, support my family, support my relative and the like, because I cannot get that service from the TSC. If you are a teacher, you get at the end of the month, you earn your things. So that one I don't have. So it is just struggling with the private schools, which pay less than TSC.
Crackdowns on double-registered people means many people cannot travel out of their regions. Travel is only reserved for those with government identification. The security operation targeting undocumented and people with double registration means they cannot use public service vehicles or get access to vital government services.
I've been arrested by police for one night. I can remember very well. They tell me that you bring your document, and I bring the document after one day. I started my class 2015 Mount Kenya University. So from 2015, 2016 to 2017, was a problem with the traveling document because I cannot travel because of ID. So every now and then they can hold you for almost 4 hours, 3 hours, 6 hours, 2 hours, sometimes 1 hour that you don't have an ID, and you can even miss the vehicle to travel. So after that, I've decided to stop the class because I cannot continue, because I don't have an original ID. And all my colleagues now, they have completed the class and now they are doing the internship.
As you go in any direction from this town, these are checkpoints where people are identified according to maybe whether they have passport or the ID cards. I have none of them. When during Corona, there's a curfew from 7 to 5 in the morning. Even if there's an emergency, it may happen that a family member gets sick at night, and then there's that emergency of maybe following the person to hospital and the like. I cannot go.
Sasa wakati mimi nakaa hapa mzee ya kijiji, mtu ya nyumba 10, kwa hivyo mtu naaminiwa kabisa na banda ya serikali, lakini watoto yangu ni kama refugee. Kama serikali nakataza sisi watoto yangu hawana haki ya kunibewa, kwa nini mimi nakosa? Hakuna kazi watoto wanafanya. Kazi watapata wapi? Hata ingine mimi nasomesha saa hii shule. Mimi najunga mbuzi hapa nyumbani. Hakuna msaada ingine mimi kusapata kwa bali yote ingine. Sababu hao watoto wanafanyia kazi, hata kama naandikwa askari, hata kama naandikwa nini, hata kama nafanya kazi, hata kama nataka biashara, hawezi kufika hapa ndio.
For double-registered women like Ismahan Mohammed, the legal status of a marriage is a source of concern, owing to the lack of an identity card.
Kwa leo sasa ninakaa nyumbani tu. Hakuna kitu ninashika, hakuna ID, kukaa. Kila kitu ni kuuliza tu bwana. Yaani everything namtegemea yeye. Na shida unajua kama mtu ambaye amewahi jua biashara hawezi kaa nyumbani. Lazima afanye kitu. Simu ukiregister Safaricom sasa wanakuambia leta ID. M-Pesa ukijitolea unamwambia leta ID na hauna ID. Si ni bwana tu ndio na register na ID yake. Pesa ikiingia must anajua hiyo pesa yako ambayo inaingia ni how much. Kila kitu ukipata lazima yeye muelezee because wewe hauna chochote la kwenda naye. Lakini ningependa nipate ID yangu so secret yangu ikuwe kitu kwangu.
Because thousands have been flagged as holding refugee status, they have been locked out of civic duties such as registering to vote or getting life-saving vaccinations or even medical care.
Watoto walipofika 18 years kuja kuchukua kipande imekuwa matatizo tena. Kura inaendelea lakini hakuna watu wale vijana wadogo wote. Hakuna mtu ambaye anaenda huko kutafuta kura. Kwa vile hawana kipande. Kura ni kipande sio tu. Paka upate kipande huwezi enda kutafuta kura.
The government of Kenya acknowledges that ethnic Somali Kenyans feel disenfranchised owing to the unresolved issues of double registration.
The future is somewhat bleak for the youth and the young ones. Because, for instance now, let's say as the government has directed before, there will become closure by next year June. Those now who are born here, they have secured birth certificate ID, birth certificate of the Kenyan. They are born on the Kenyan soil. But now there's voluntary repatriation and voluntary of the refugees. So the disadvantage is that a child has been born in Kenya, he has studied in Kenya, but now he will be taken to a foreign land because as it is, if he's taken back to Somalia or Ethiopia, that is a foreign land to him because all he knows is Kenya.
It's for this reason that a leading human rights organization, Haki na Sheria Initiative, based in Garissa town, has been working with the community to find a lasting solution.
Haki na Sheria is an indigenous organization working in northern Kenya. And one of the biggest problems that communities in that area have been having for the longest time has been around citizenship rights and access to nationality documents such as IDs, birth certificates and passports. And this is how Haki na Sheria got involved with the whole issue of double registration because they are the largest group of Kenyans who are unable to acquire nationality documents.
Haki na Sheria, this is the only human rights organization in Garissa. And this is the first organization, human rights organization that our community have seen. So the first thing we did was, we didn't give them hope that tomorrow you'll get an ID card. We first built the trust by visiting them. We did a lot of outreach. We did a lot of legal aid by using our paralegals. Any information that we get from the government on the issue of ID card and the issue of this double registration, we had to share with them. We were going to the grassroots to sit down with them, know how many people are being affected by this exercise. Visiting a community member who have been affected by this labor registration give them at least a hope that maybe these guys, they can take your words and take it to somewhere that he or she was unable to take it. When we did our legal aid, we had almost 200 and something victims. But as we were doing the community outreach, we came to realize the number is more than we were imagining. That figure raised up to 500. That one did not stop our advocacy. We tried to work with those youth until whereby the Kenyan government decided to do a vetting on those who have been affected by this double registration. I can remember here in Garissa Township only, Garissa County, there were more than 15,000 who have been vetted in the year 2015. That was the first vetting. The Kenya government came out and said that an estimate of 40,000 youth are being affected by this.
As much as Haki and Sheria is a homegrown grassroots organization, we understand the problem these people go through much better than anybody. But that does not mean that we are working in isolation. We can't do this work on our own. We need the support of the like-minded officers. Government office, Ministry of the Interior, the registration department is a key partner that we work closely with. As much as the problem falls within their docket, they've been a good partner to work with. We can do this without their full support. Other partners, we have other partners, non-governmental organizations that support us. So we work in a network, in a consortium of like-minded human rights organizations from the other parts of the country to push this process.
Facing the threat of deportation after the vetting process, petitioners have sought legal redress in court.
The petition was caused by the long delay that the government has taken in this issue. You can understand that 6 months without a national ID is a long time. It is trusting in the process of the rule of law that these individuals approached us and they said, can you kindly support us to file this matter to be determined by the courts, therefore resolved in that way. So Haki and Sheria, together with three other double registered victims who are representative of the thousands who are on the database, filed the case in the Garissa High Court, and the matter is before the judge. Actually, one of the main reasons why we filed the case was that there are serious issues of data protection violations, where individuals' consent was not sought at the time when this data was being collected. In fact, you will realize a lot of them were minors who were not even able to give consent and did not understand the situation that they were being involved in. The average age of these double registered individuals is between 23 and 35, which means that when they were being double registered, when they were being registered in the refugee database, they were about 7, 8, 9, 10. And they could not have given consent.
The head of Haki and Sheria initiative, Yusuf Bashir, explains the urgency of the matter.
They have been waiting for the longest time, and the government hasn't demonstrated the necessary urgency to resolve this issue. For example, in the latest response that was given by the Ministry of Interior, they said that they are willing to resolve this issue. However, it is COVID that is delaying this issue, which we find is very, very disingenuous, because COVID was not there in 2019 when this issue was, when they were being vetted and promises were being made. And COVID is a very dangerous excuse to give, because we don't know how long this global pandemic situation will continue. And this is why Haki and Sheria decided let this matter be resolved by the courts. And hopefully, if the government is willing to listen and resolve this issue before even the case is determined, we are also happy for that situation to arise and these people to get their documents.
For thousands of people trapped in double registration, the hope of a better future can only come from having their details removed from the UNHCR refugee database and be issued with Kenyan national identity cards. To be free from the bondage of statelessness and enjoy life for once like other bona fide Kenyans.
The future right now look like very dark. I am in a prison in my country, in my own country. So I don't have freedom. I am stateless within my country.
There's a lot of suffering. A lot of suffering. The suffering is, it's dire.
Mimi niliona watoto yangu wamefungwa. Niliona kabisa mtoto yangu wamefungwa. Mimi niliona kabisa mafikiri mingi sana.
Sometimes it raises our emotions. So that's a great problem to us.
This is a very, very sad situation, and it should have been resolved a long, long time ago. It just requires goodwill. The president has in the past called upon the bureaucrats in the Ministry of Interior to resolve this issue, because he has noted that these people are hungry and they are Kenyans and they need their IDs. But up to now, since those declarations have been made by the head of state, up to now, that issue is not resolved. And we hope that situation will be resolved.